That little clock. Are we good? All right. All right. Good morning. We're going to call this meeting of the Board of Directors of the Denton County Transportation Authority to order. We do have a quorum. And we're going to go ahead and start up with our invocation. Cesar, would you mind?
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this beautiful day that you provided us. Please grant us wisdom and discernment as we make the decisions for the Denton County Transportation Board, and be with us always. In this we pray. Amen.
Member Green, would you mind leading the pledges?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Mr. Christina, we have any introductions?
No, sir, none today.
All right. And Keisha, do we have any public comment?
No, sir.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and move. I am going to take some personal privilege and step straight into the regular agenda and the budget. And so that's item one. I do have to step out here in about 30 minutes. But wanted to make a couple of quick comments. I'm hopeful that the board can approve the budget today. I think it looks good. It makes sense. I do want to have staff though come back for a discussion on TRIP when we have a full board in October. I think that's an important conversation to be having. I want full representation of the county and our three cities before we step through all of the TRIP, whatever that TRIP conversation looks like, if there's a reduction, if there's not. I know we started down that conversation last month. Was hopeful that we could continue that today, but unfortunately we don't have a full, and I think we really need some input from the county as well on that. So I'm gonna ask that staff bring that back as a conversation in October. So what's in the budget is what we've got scheduled. But as a board, we'll come back and look at TRIP and see if we want to modify that budget or change any of that in October. Is what I'm going to recommend and hope that the board supports. So there's no vote on that. I would need to see if we've got any, at least on the TRIP side of thing. Do I have a consensus? Are you guys okay with that conversation happening in October?
Yeah, as long as that conversation does happen, we can certainly change things. At that point, I'm happy with that. Certainly open the conversation.
Okay, super. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and move into regular agenda item 1. And this is conducting a public hearing, consider approval of a resolution to adopt the proposed Denton County Transportation Authority fiscal year 2026 operating and capital budget, long range financial plan, and budget contingency plan beginning October 1, 2025 and ending September 30th, 2026. And we're going to go ahead and give that to Jane and Paul.
Thank you, Mayor Gilmore. Good morning, Chair and Board. Thank you for your time. I want to do a quick just thank you to everybody, especially the board, for the last 3 months of going over the budget with us. All your questions, your challenges, your input have been invaluable. Also to all the departments for their budgets that they pulled together in the spring. There was a lot of time and energy that was done for that. So I want to thank each department for that. In addition to Michelle Swaza, who worked with me on the budget, and Don Jones, who worked with me on the grants numbers. And then especially with Paul, he spent a lot of time with me on the budget and the long range financial plan. And David for our revenue sources and also input on the long range plan. Just want to say thank you to each of you real quick before we hopefully wrap up our board budget today. I'm going to go ahead and start here with the budget summary. So the budget summary is going to look very similar to what we saw in July. The only difference that is within the number of the G&A is $160,000 was added to that particular $11 million number. And that is for the fare system study that we discussed in July. And that is to evaluate ticket vending machines and fare collections to help us best determine the best course of action. So that went up by the 160,000, giving us an overall operating budget of $54,251,832. The proposed capital budget remains unchanged at 26 million. There's a slide that I'll go over some details of that, but the overall bottom line number did not change on capital from what you've seen the last month. The debt service number in addition did not change. And then that leaves us at the bottom chart of the G&A to operating expenses 20.9. This is something we're keeping an eye on. And being sure that we're very conservative in that, but 20.9 is our G&A to our operating expense for FY26. Are there any questions on that slide? All right. This here is the budget updates. It's a relatively colorful slide with a lot of information on it, but there's some key areas that we'll really focus in on. The 25 adopted under the current year is what we are in right this moment. But when you look at the yellow column for proposed, that's what we presented in June. And you do also have this at your space if it's easier to see. There's several of these documents, but this one's fairly easy to see, I think. The green is proposed revised. That's what we presented in July. And then I've quoted adopted for the orange, which is what we're presenting today. And then the blue column is showing you the differential. So there's just a couple areas where there's a differential between today and what happened in July. And that is, one of those is in contract service revenue. So there's a difference of $487,041. That is made up of the increase in the UNT rate per service hour at $79.50, which is going to allow us a little more revenue in FY26 than we anticipated in the prior month, now that we were able to shore that up. In addition to, we were flip-flopping some numbers for how we bank some of our money in the Collin County rides. So, for example, in the federal state operating, you see a reduction of $287,300, but that $287,300 is going to now be in contract service revenue. And the reason we did that is we are also booking the Allen and Fairview revenue to the contract service revenue account. And it just made sense to go ahead and do COG there as well, because it functions the same way. It just took us with a little experience to really realize that we were probably putting it into the wrong bucket. So this allows us to put it into the correct bucket. The other change is that $160,000 in operating expenses that I just mentioned, giving us a net increase of $39,741. Any questions on the changes from last month to this month for this particular slide? This right here is the change in net position. This is net depreciation. Again, the same things I had mentioned would be the same changes that you would see in here. But the thing that this one is showing you is our overall operating expense budget is $54,251,832. That is a 4.5% change over FY25. If you were to be looking at this same slide, which you have at your space, with depreciation, it's $64,836,480. Or you can also see that on the slide I just went over with all the colors. Right here is just showing you our overall adopted revenue for FY26. That's going to come in at $65,921,722. That is a 2.6% increase over last year. And again, that UNT revenue is built into here. So the only difference between what was in July and today is the additional UNT revenue that we have, which is approximately $199,000. And of course, as with normal, the revenue for sales taxes are number one, federal operating grants is our number two. This is a capital and major maintenance. Again, the bottom line hasn't changed here, but we did make some changes based on some discussions that we had in July. And those changes, just as a reminder, are we remove the contactless fare payment system and the ticket vending machine projects. And then we have reappropriated that money into the A-Train expanded service hours analysis for $1 million. In addition to the A-Train design and support for 15-minute headways was a $5 million project, but it'll be a $5.5 million project. Austin's going to be discussing that here in just a few more slides. And it's just so we were rescoping the projects and then determined that the $5.5 million number made the most sense for that. So that gives us an overall budget, capital budget of $26,062,345. Questions on capital? Okay. This is just here more for reference. We saw this in July as well, and it's also just showing the assumptions that we've made for some of the revenue increases and expense increases that we made in the long range financial plan, which is coming up here over the next 3 slides. as well as some of the key capital players and just some definitions of how fund balance reserve, sales tax stabilization works. So it's really more just of a reference point. So when someone's looking at these next 3 slides, it's a reminder of how we have kind of put our long-range financial plan together. This is the first of the 3 slides for long-range financial plan. Again, this first slide covers revenue and operating expenses. The only changes that you would see would be in the FY26 column for the things I've already mentioned. The out years on this are all calculated based on those assumptions. There are a few more changes when you get to the second slide. And what those are is from the July meeting, we were asked to kind of flesh out some of the out year numbers. For example, something with the cutaway buses purchases. And so we have actually fleshed that out in the future years between FY26 and 32 to show what those costs would be to eventually replace all of our cutaway buses over that period of years. And then the A-Train 15-minute frequency build out is in there from FY32 to 34. We do not have the OpEx expenses built into this plan yet. We will by next time we do this. But we do have the OpEx expenses built out for to downtown Carrollton. So, and that's built out in year FY30. It's just kind of in that lump sum number. But we just wanted to disclose to you that the OpEx isn't in here, but the capital is in here now. Fleet purchase rail is in 2033 to 36. We've actually escalated those numbers, knowing that, you know, in those future years, the trains will highly likely be a little bit more than what they would be today. The TOD is in here for $40 million. And that takes us from through 2026 to 2029. And if the board is to approve the operating and capital plan today, then they would also be approving the commitment to this plan. And then that would allow us to be able to launch our RFQ for the TOD project. And then as mentioned before from the mayor, TRIP is in here for the year at 3.7 million. Sounds like we'll discuss that in October, but for the time being, we'll have this as our number for the time being. And then when we discuss in October, we can see where we land on that particular number. Questions on long-range financial plan? And then this is the last slide that just sort of shows us the ending fund balance through the years in addition to the reserves. Not any really changes on this other than just calculations here and there in the out years. So it's going to look very similar to what you have seen last month. And now Paul's going to go over the organizational structure, staffing, and goals for FY26.
Thank you, Jane. We have gotten in the practice every year of putting into the budget what is our approved headcount and org chart, just to ensure that we maintain the discipline as an organization to make sure that our staffing is aligned with the objectives of our budget and our annual work plan. We have a net zero headcount add for this year. We are walking into fiscal 26 with some vacant positions that have been repurposed from others as the organization has grown over time and evolved. We understand more about what our needs are, and so we're putting those resources in the places that they're best. Overall, what we've done is trying to create an org structure that pushes work to the lowest level and ensures that we have the right amount of people through all levels of the organization to make sure that we're getting work done as efficiently and effectively as we can. You see that on the right-hand side with the staff allocation by salary band from the vice president level down into the specialist and operator level and beyond. And again, no additional positions requested in the fiscal 26 budget. We also, every time some position comes open, we look at it, we understand what was the person doing, what do we need that position to do in the future, or what do we need other positions to do in the future, so that we're always working towards performing the right amount of work at the lowest levels of the organization as possible and maintaining as efficient an operation as we possibly can. We ask you to adopt the fiscal year 2026 budget that's aligned with goals and objectives for the organization. And so as you recall, over the last couple of years, we've had a work plan comprised of goals and objectives. There's about 18 of them overall that we have been able to some tick off the list. Others we've taken from very broad objectives where we understood where we wanted to go, but not exactly how we were going to get there. And now we have a lot more clarity on those things because we've been working at them for a couple of years, making steady progress along the way. So this year, what's really encouraging to us is that our business objective scope can be narrowed down quite a bit as we move from what has been a period of transformation to what is going to become a period of optimization. So the objectives that are allowing us to achieve our overall organizational goals this year. In fiscal 26, we will continue to progress the A-Train enhancement program. We're going to continue to make data-driven investment decisions to optimize our service mix between Go Zone and fixed route like we did in phase 1 last summer. We're going to continue progressing the Old Town Louisville transit-oriented development with a fully fleshed out long-range financial plan where we see that there's a place down in the future where we could run our capital reserves low. We've got to begin thinking more about how we actually accomplish these things and put the agency in a position for health over the long term, like the 15 to 20-year time horizon. So we're going to work across all departments to improve those long-range financial plan outcomes. We're continuing to work on data visualization on the operations side, as well as now with the implementation of our ERP, which we accomplished this year on the finance side, we can begin to visualize that finance data as well. We're continuing to focus on customer experience, the removal of the ticket vending machine hardware from our budget and the putting in the operating dollars to do this fare collection optimization study that we're going to do along with a fare policy is going to be a big cornerstone of that effort. You all give us approval or will give us approval in the budget for various working papers on the long range service plan that are also tied to customer experience. We're going to continue to look at how we make sure that our organization is robust and capable through policies and procedures and making sure that we have a consistent method to do our work. As the Regional Transit 2.0 conversation has gotten more and more traction, we find ourselves in the middle of that conversation proudly, and we expect that a portion of our efforts this year will be focused on helping to drive outcomes at the regional level. And we're always in the business of making sure that we're maintaining relationships with our member cities, the county, and providing clarity around the DCTA value proposition. So
Paul?
with that, I'll answer any questions. Yes, sir.
Dan, did you have questions? Nope. Okay. Couple of questions, estimated timelines on items 7 and 8 on that slide.
So we'll be scoping the long range service plan working papers to, ideally, we'd like to get to a fare policy of substance and the fare collection component by the end of fiscal 2026, that we can go into 2027 with implementation of the plan that we come up with very broadly. And then on the A-Train, Austin will talk more about what that timeline looks like. And then on the TOD, we are talking about RFP this year, that by the end of next year, we have a developer partner on hand.
And then the ERP and implementation.
So Jackie, so finance is going to wrap up with the audit this year that they're going to start this month. That's the last phase of the finance ERP, because there are things that you can only do on ERP when you're actually closing out the books for the year. Jackie Bronson will give you a briefing next month on recommendations for the human resources and inventory modules and payroll modules, where we believe we'll be using enhancing existing systems that are more cost effective and more able to be implemented more quickly. Make sense?
Other questions?
So this is a public hearing item, and so I'll refer to you, Joe. Now would be the time to open the hearing. Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead and turn on my microphone. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing for discussion on the budget. If there's no comments from the board or questions, and I don't believe we have anyone who signed up for public comment, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the adopted or the proposed DCTA fiscal 2026 operating and capital budget, long range financial plan and budget contingency plan beginning October 1st, 2025, ending September 30th.
Can I put a hold on that until
Sure.
we've closed the public hearing?
Sure.
Awesome. Thank
thought
you.
you did
So I've
say
got a
that.
motion to close the public hearing. I've got a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is now closed, and we're going to take up that motion.
My apologies. to
No,
the
you're
chair. I
fine.
thought we'd already.
We got ahead of it. We're good. I just need a second for that.
Okay.
Second that as well.
I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Joe, we good?
We're good. I might have missed this at the beginning, a little housekeeping item. Can we have someone volunteer to be the?
Oh,
secretary of
yeah.
this meeting?
Missed that.
Secretary Val needs to sign the minutes.
Oh, I can.
Allison, thank you. So we have board member McGuire who has volunteered to sign the secretary position.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Great. Thank you all very much.
Awesome. We'll go ahead and move on to the regular agenda items 2 and 3. We're going to open these together as they're kind of linked. First is consider approval of monthly financial statement for June 30th, 2025, quarterly grants report for quarter 3. Oh, yeah, we could consider it. No, I think we're going to just stay with regular.
We can.
And I can
your
come back to
pleasure.
consent. I can come back to consent. Receive update regarding finance operations and RAO 3, discuss consider approval of a contract amendment with Plant Moran in the amount of $72,775 for fiscal year 2025 audit services. And it looks like we have Lakeisha Williams up to present. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lakeisha Williams, and today I'll be walking through a high-level overview of the quarter 3 year-to-date financials. So let me start off. While quarter 3, hold on. Oh, do we start with? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Got excited.
All right, we're starting with grants. All right, here, what you will see is the grants that we have drawn down in Q3. And so this would represent March through June of June 30th of 2025. And you can see in the variance column, those are the drawdowns that we've done. Many of you are very savvy at math, so you might recognize that the first column minus the second column does not always equal the third column. The reason being for that, it would be if we were able to execute a grant within one of those lines in order to bring in some more grant revenue before we did the drawdown. As an example, for the Denton-Lewisville UZA, we executed a lapsing grant for $126,000. So we were able to add those funds in, and then we drew down $2.8 million, leaving us $8.6 million available for the grant. So for this period, we have drawn down $4.1 million of grant funding. And of course, as you see, we have grant funding available and still all these grants that are executed. You will see a few where there's just a dollar sign. That would be the particular grants where we have not drawn something down because we don't have the expenses to draw down as of right this moment, but we will have them in the future. So things like fleet replacement, the TOD, and then we're trying to rescope our Chrissy grant from PTC to curb and speed study, which will allow us, if that happens, that'll allow us to start drawing that grant down. So for this particular quarter, we were able to draw down $4.1 million of grant funding. And then in addition, we've also, if you remember, applied for a competitive grant. And then we have a few other grants that are kind of in the works that will allow us help with fleet replacement, maintenance, things of those nature. So this is not the only grant funding that we have. We do have additional. Any questions on grants before we move on to the financial plan? All right, Lakeisha. David.
I always emphasize that I am your part-time interim CFO, so it's really been quite a change from the last time I was here in this capacity. Your staff is now staffed up. They're good at what they do. They've got the skill sets that you would hope for that, and so it's made it easy for me to just focus on a few things that I've been doing kind of on a task basis. First and foremost, my obligation is to make sure that the checks get processed, funds get moved, and vendors and people get paid. So that's worked expeditiously. And again, the staff's been very supportive. Tyler is not an issue. I mean, in terms of, and that was always a question I had once you do a cutover. That next several months is sometimes lumpy. It really hasn't been too bad. Staff is just getting into the report writing phase, so they're still in Excel spreadsheet, financial preparations, but that's going to move away here probably in the next 60 to 90 days. On the investment side, and I know you all invest money in some way individually, this is a peculiar time to invest on the fixed income side because the shorter the term, the more money you make. That's kind of a new, right now we're earning in Techstar real close to 4.3%. 2 years about 3.8%, and 2 year has already adjusted downward in anticipation of a rate revision in September. Now, if you've been reading about rate revisions and anticipations, that's been going on for a year. The goal, the idea is it's likely this time, and I suspect it's, the bet's pretty good. We need to anticipate that when it goes down, that the daily will and the current returns will drop quickly. It's pretty much one for one. So if it drops 25 basis points, you're going to see something similar. The goal, as I read, is all the way up to 100 basis points. That would move from 4.3 to 2.3, or I'm sorry, 3.3. So now is the time to really begin to move some of the money that's not going to move for a long time over into something that might be in 3.8% range. But get it locked in so that you've got some protection against the movements that are likely to occur. Now, I say likely to occur, and as you know, no guarantees in any of this, but it's likely. A couple other things. Of course, I've been participating with Paul and the team on the CFO search. I think a couple good options are available to the staff and the board. Paul's discussed some of these, I believe. The main thing is you're in a much different and better position relative now. So the role of the various talent can be distributed differently it was before, and Paul will get into that, I'm sure, at the appropriate time. I have looked at your long-range financial plan. I was working closely with Jane in this as you were all going through it. I was focused on the trip plan. I've recognized trip plans. I've seen them in the past in different agencies. You have to be careful with them. They can build up big obligations that stay on your books, so you have to treat them as a liability. They're not money that's available to you, even though legally you have the ability to change. So long as your policy says what it says, then you have to reserve for those and assume that you're in fact really going to spend that money. So that's why you'll see a big number, which is now you're approaching 133 million, but you have to back out almost 50 million of that to look at what might be available for discretionary things. So I've been looking at that with, particularly with Jane. You're getting close now. You have a lot better line of sight on your capital program. Things that you want to do in terms of the Carrollton extension, and your A-train frequency discussions, bus, et cetera. So and the HQ and the TOD project, all those are a much more complete level of discussion than they were previously. So it's a little bit easier to drop them in, and then you have to put in those rail car replacements. They're expensive. You'll have a big discussion about that, not next year. But light rail cars have gotten 3 times the expenses they were really just 15 years ago. So you really have to, look very closely at that. Now, those are not light rail; those are really commuter rail. And I understand that, but they're expensive. On the TOD, the RFQ process, I've been supporting that, but Paris, Rutherford, Kittleson, and Paul, obviously, or not Paul, but on working that through Austin. I really was focused on the rating system because I understand procurement well enough to know that you really had to be attentive to your rating system so the developers know what it is it's expected of them and how that's balanced. And also your project delivery process, which looks like it's going to be a progressive design build, but that is up to the developers when they come in with their proposals. So it's, that we'll see what they say, but I think you're about ready to put that out on the street. There's a lot of interest in it, and I think you're going to be happy with it. I did pay attention to the discussion about TVMs. Paul knows that TVMs are not my favorite subject. I spent a lot of time with TVMs and other agencies. In fact, I was in Portugal last week, and I was at a train station, and this is a typical scene. There's a fellow standing there in front of the TVM, and I watched for 5 minutes as he tried to figure out how to pay. And he wasn't a tourist. He was, but he'd gotten confused about what to do. The point is they're complicated. But in your case, I worked with Lakeisha and looked at the fare ends. You're only collecting, let's call it $250 to $400 a month on the A-train platforms in cash. And that's what basically the TVMs are there for. There's a lot of other ways to do that. They're very efficient, and I would, and I know you're all talking about that, and I have a number of things I could suggest in that regard, and will. And then finally, Todd Plesko and I, in working with Paul, have been talking a little bit about the extension discussion relative to the lease extension, you know, for the next 20 to 30 years. With DART, I was on the other side of those negotiations, 10, 15 years ago. I'm taking your side now and saying that you shouldn't pay very much at all. That'd be my view, because they got quite a lot the last time. But the point is that that's a long discussion. It's complicated, a lot of theory and that, a lot of policy considerations. So I've been filling Todd in on how that was all unfolded last time from my perspective, and happy to help there. But my assignments are task specific. I'm not managing staff. I'm not doing performance appraisals. So I work at the direction of your CEO, obviously, and that's my report. Happy to comment.
Thank you, David. So I guess that means that you're okay sticking around for a while if we're not giving you that much
Well,
to do.
long enough to make sure that you're satisfied that you've got your program in place for your financial management. Yeah. But that's your decision, not mine.
Well, thank you for the hard work. Thank you. Any questions for David?
No.
Now it's me, I'm back. Okay, so I am here to provide you with a high-level overview of the Q3 year-to-date financials. And as well as providing the Q3 financials is also Q1 for us being in the new Tyler Munis system. So that's something to be excited about. So as you see on the screen, it may be a different look from what you have in your agenda packet, but the data is still the same, the information is still the same. So as you can see, we have the year-to-date budget that's in the color blue, and we have the actuals that is in orange. So as you can see, passenger revenue is slightly ahead of expectations, signaling a stable ridership, as well as sales tax is also ahead of the year-to-date budget number, which also indicates a strong performance, as well as our federal operating grants. Now, one thing to take note, if you look at the capital grants, which consist of capital projects and associated grants, that number is significantly lower. Reason being, a lot of these projects and grants we have for the capital grants is going to roll over to FY26. We do have one that we anticipate the actuals to hit in Q4 for the electronic safety and security program. And moving on to the expenditures. The outsourced service and materials and supplies are both below budget due to project timing, such as the IT upgrades. We have key projects such as bus stop standards, the long range service plan, a trade program, and marketing consulting. And I believe Austin's going to speak on some of those services we have coming up. The insurance as well is above expected. If the actuals are above the budget amount, which reflects the timing of the payments for the insurance. And it's not necessarily broken out over the 12-month accrual process for the full year. So it hits when the payments hit. Do we have any questions on the expenses and revenues?
Any questions?
Okay. So next, I'd like to speak on the audit consultant task order. So to give you a little history, back in March of 2021, the board approved a 5-year audit contract with Plant Moran in the amount of $290,500. So on the chart above, you will have the estimated fees. This gives you a breakout of what they anticipated for at the beginning, back in 2021. So in reality, in FY21 and 22, we had Accenture support as well as staff transitions. And with all of that going on in FY21 and 22, they also had the NTMC analysis, which included $2,000. So they stayed fairly within the budgeted range. In FY23, we went above budget. We had the GASB accounting standards that they had to test, as well as the additional NTD testing, which also caused an increase in fees. And looking at FY24, there was a lot going on in FY24. We had the NTMC transition, as well as our new ERP implementation system, which there was a lot of timing in trying to fit in as well as make sure the audit was completed. So the increase in the cost of the audit also played a part in that as well for the increase over year. So now we're looking at FY '25. For FY '25, we are requesting an additional $72,775 in addition authority not to exceed $90,000 for the FY '24 task order. And I do believe we will come in under budget for FY '25. And the reason I say that because we are currently having a game plan set in place. So our game plan consists of planning early by keeping reconciliations current and assign clear ownership, review past audits, use them as the blueprints, and implement controls to make sure we are in compliance this year as well. And communicating, share calendars, clarify requests, and update auditors on any changes that may occur this year. And finally, is to do a pre-audit review to catch any errors internally before the audit even begins. So, do you have any questions on the task order? Okay, thank you. So with that being said, staff recommends approval of the monthly financial statement for June 30th, 2025, quarterly grants report for Q3 fiscal year 2025, as well as staff recommends approval of a contract amendment with Plant Moran in the amount of $72,775 for fiscal year 25 audit services.
Have two distinct recommendations for each agenda item.
I was gonna ask,
Okay.
do we
gotta
need
take
to
them.
do them separately or, okay?
Yes, we have them separately. So I'll entertain a motion. Let's start with the first one, the item 2.
I move approval of monthly financial statement.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion.
Third, and the quarterly grants.
And the quarterly grants report, pardon me.
Second, and you'll second that, okay? So we have a motion and a second for the approval of the monthly financial statements for June 30th, 2025, then the quarterly grants report for the third quarter. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Now we have item number 3. I'll entertain a motion for item number 3.
I'll make a motion for approval of a contract amendment with Plant Moran in the amount of $72,775 for fiscal year 25 audit services.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion, second, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, can we go ahead and step back and take the consent now? Is that, so let's go back to the consent agenda. If we can scroll that back, please. Oh. All right, the consent agenda, this is typically items that are typical normal operating items, very little usually limited concern for the board. We typically put them in as one item, one motion, take all 4 of them, unless there's a board member that wants to pull any one additional item for additional discussion. So I'm not seeing that anybody wants to take one out for additional discussion. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion, have a second? All those signify by saying aye
Aye.
to approve? Any no's, so motion carries. So consent agenda has been approved. All right, that takes us now back to item 4 and 5. I believe we want to take these 2 as a set as well. Mr. CEO, okay. So let's open up discussion item 4, discuss update on A-Train enhancement and consider approval of an authorization letter to Rio Grande Pacific Corporation, the amount not to exceed $2.456 million for the A-Train curb and speed improvements. And we'll also open up number 5, which is discuss and consider approval of task order number 3 with H.W. Lochner in the amount not to exceed $113,000 for curb and speed improvements. Starting the first one with Austin Furt.
Morning, Chair and members of the board.
So we're going to take two agenda items here for recommendation and approval. Stepping back for a second, looking at our overall decision tree, we've shared this numerous times with you all. We want to highlight the areas in the green boxes. These are the two areas that we're going to focus on in this next discussion. The far left one is the curve and speed upgrades. This is, as you all aware, our intention to increase the speed of the train along the corridor. The second green box is this design to downtown Carrollton, a preliminary engineering design, and then a schematic design for 15-minute headways. So those are our two major decision points here we're going to have in the next couple months. This next slide gives an overview of the upcoming task orders that we're going to be asking for approval here in the next 2 to 3 months. So the ones in the green are the areas that we're going to ask for approval today. The first one is the RGBC Rio Grande Pacific authorization letter to do curve and speed improvements implementation. That's essentially the civil work, track work that's required along with the systems upgrades to get the train faster along the corridor. The other one is H.W. Lochner Task Order 3, which is going to support project administration for that curve and speed implementation project as well. So if we step back a little bit to August 2023, we provided an update to you all of the overall program total. This was to get to 15-minute headways. What you see in the blue box there is our initial estimate for the curve and speed improvements at 26 million. Since then, we've done some adjustments to the program, being that 15-minute headway being our goal. We realized that Med Park extension for this for the sidings isn't required for this initial program. In addition, this 26 million also included full upgrade of PTC system. So we've, as part of this curve and speed project, we've removed that and just focus on what minimal effort to get to higher speed along the train. So just want to give you all an update on where that number is and where it is right now. Again, we're about 3 million for that curve and speed improvements as we sit today. But there are elements that were in this that aren't in that cost. So what is the curve and speed project consist of, and what are we looking for approval today? Again, the Lochner Program Administration Coordination. This is going to allow Lochner to lead the coordination between agencies. There's also an element of preemption modification, essentially, as the train's approaching these crossings, getting that train to cross those crossings faster. That's going to be work that's going to be coordinated with Lochner and Rio Grande to see what opportunities we have for that. We also have some FRA engagement. There may be some plan RFIs, requests for information, elements that Lochner will be supporting on as well. On the Rio Grande side, this is majorly the civil work and the signaling work that they'll be engaged with. There's quite a bit of speed code changes that have to be done, as well as some civil work at 3 locations. So timeline, we are towards the beginning of September now. So the board approval is a major milestone today. We'll proceed with the NTP for Rio Grande and Lochner upon that approval, probably next week or first part of September. Rio Grande to start procuring materials starting in middle of September, early October. And then the engineering pre-construction with the Rio Grande will start, followed by the programming of the signals and testing. And then the major track civil work, we anticipate that could start as early as December, depending on scheduling and outages. We'll proceed with cutover and installation, a final installation happening hopefully towards the beginning of next summer, and then testing, commissioning, hopefully finishing up in middle of summer of next year.
Austin, if I
Yes.
could, one thing that I want to point out with this schedule is what's seemingly a pretty simple scope of work has a long time on it. And that's because the way the schedule is built right now, we're trying to avoid service days. So this is working on Sundays and times when the train is not in service. If we wanted to try to get this thing done as fast as possible, we'd schedule outages, bus bridges, and that sort of thing, but that would cost more money and have more customer impact. And so we'll be providing updates as we go throughout this to say this closure will happen on this day to do this kind of work, or this is the work that's going to be happening on this particular Sunday. Again, we're trying to minimize impact to our customers, minimize impact to municipalities, some of whom are doing roadway crossing work, like grade crossing work on the approaches. And so if we can time that with them, then it's shutting down the crossing once instead of once for us and once for them. So we appreciate you all's flexibility in this schedule to give us that kind of time to do this in the way that minimizes impact and minimizes cost.
Thanks.
The thing to add to that, Paul, too, we have this Chrissy grant that we've applied for amendment for. The decision on that hopefully is coming shortly on whether or not we can use some of those funds for this project. So that's also tying in the schedule, but it dovetails nicely where we're at right now.
I have a question, Austin. Do you have any bad weather days built into this?
So in the long track civil work, we are finalizing the schedule with Rio Grande. But that would fall, some of those bad weather days would fall within that track civil work time.
Right, because if you're trying to do this work really on those days, if you have to have a bad
Right.
day, that throws you off and that adds weeks.
Correct. Yeah,
Just,
this
that's more just a question.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say this is
Built
a
something.
conservative schedule we have.
Okay,
right now, so.
okay, you worked that into it, okay. good.
Yep. Yes, sir. So when we look at our overall program update, so we've got the major components for the A-Train enhancement program here. As we talked, curve and speed, we've got downtown Carrollton, 15-minute headway, and then station at Corinth. So these are all the elements within the program. We just wanted to point out that, as you can see, essentially starting now, we are moving all these elements towards some level of development. So over the next 2-3 months, we're going to make major progress on moving all these elements forward. Again, these are high-level estimates on schedule, but downtown Carrollton right now, we're going to be hopefully starting preliminary design here in the fall, along with schematic design for 15-minute headway. And then station at Corinth, we have a council briefing to them here shortly. And that will hopefully get that moving towards some type of site analysis decision here shortly as well.
Austin, I
Yes.
have a question. Can you help me understand? We have the curve and speed, and then we have the 15-minute headway. I assume those are linked together, right?
Yes.
So what are the specific items that the 15-minute headway is addressing? Is that like coming up with new schedules and,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah, so curve and speed is to simplify it, it's really just focusing, getting the train moving faster along the corridor with minimal investments right now. The 15-minute headway is going to look at what it would take from a scheduling perspective, an implementations perspective, an operations perspective to get to 15-minute frequencies.
okay, so.
And
then
the
with
construction of the additional passing sidings in order to make that happen. But even if we went straight to building the 15-minute infrastructure and implementing the 15-minute infrastructure, we would still have to do those curve and speed improvements to make that schedule work.
Right, that's what I'm getting. So that's where I see the linkage. But with the curve and speed, when we're doing that right now, it's really just to get the train moving faster, not necessarily to increase the headways, because that requires much larger scope of things that have to be done to
Correct.
make that happen. Okay.
Right, and I think it was last month or the month before, we talked about, we have the potential to shave a few minutes off of the runtime. What do you all want to do with that runtime? Do you want to try to get to a 27-minute schedule or something like that? And the feedback was, no, let's go as fast as we can, maintaining the current schedule, because we can still gain some time on the ends and get people to downtown Carrollton faster without changing the 30-minute frequency schedule.
Okay, thank you.
So kind of what she's basically saying, and then just for the public, this is a step process. We're doing some investment now. None of this is throwaway investment.
Correct.
It's just being added on to with the next phase, and that's when the public will see the huge improvements.
Correct.
So.
So when we talk about the downtown Carrollton scope, that we'll be bringing to you all next month, we wanted to just outline at a high level what our objectives are for advancing the design. So when we talk about the delivery method of getting there, you know, some of these major objectives for delivery method, we want to eliminate, mitigate risk, and how are we doing that through the advancing of the design? So the advancing of the design to a certain level, that's going to allow us to eliminate any risk that we identify in the utility analysis. So that's going to help us out. Additionally, when we talk about federal funding for this program and for downtown Carrollton, there is a minimum requirement that we have to make as far as getting the design to a certain point to allow us to apply for those grants. So that's going to allow us to do that. When we talk about local funding opportunities, getting the design to a certain level is going to support and position us better for funding through STIP, TIP, and other discretionary programs locally. Additionally, looking at the cost certainty, getting the design developed to a certain percentage allows us to really refine that estimate to a point we all feel comfortable with and to program that into the long-range financial plan. And then, of course, on the delivery timeline, we're looking at ways that we can accelerate delivery methods by getting this design to a certain level. So this just shows we have objectives, and advancing the design of downtown Carrollton to a certain percentage gets us to those as well. This graphic really looks at how positioning ourselves with this preliminary design to downtown Carrollton essentially is aligned with really any delivery method we proceed with. So whether we go design to build, construction management at risk, or progressive design build, what we want to do is get the design done to a certain percentage, and then the decision point of which delivery method we move forward with will be determined after that preliminary design is done. And what this just shows is within each delivery method, whenever we get to that decision point, we're not wasting effort by getting to that preliminary design final piece. So as far as next steps, for the extension of Carrollton 15-minute headway, next month we'll be looking at a board approval for the task order 2 for that preliminary design and schematic for downtown Carrollton 15-minute headway. We have began discussions with City of Carrollton. We'll prepare for design kickoff meetings with Carrollton, DGNO, and DART for that task. On the extended service hours, this is what we're calling task order 4. This is going to be a task order that's going to be focused around looking at operating later into the evening on the schedule. And that's going to include analysis of operations, staffing, and any equipment requirements that are going to be needed for that investment, as well as looking at cost estimates of what that will take infrastructure-wise, and then OpEx as well. And then finally, the Corinth Station, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but we're preparing for 3 potential sites for that station. So this task order will look in more detail of those sites and the feasibility of those, access, connectivity, and then we're going to look at in more detail about the utility and any environmental constraints, because that's going to be something that we're going to need to work closely with the city on throughout that Corinth corridor.
And to be clear on that, the Corinth Station conversation is going to be driven by the city of Corinth. We've given them an initial scope and fee for that station siting study. They're considering that in their current budget process. That's the conversation that they'll have with themselves, I believe, in early September. And then they'll let us know how they want to proceed with that, if or how they want us to proceed with that.
And on task 4, that extended service hours, is that Did we get funding from the COG to do that, like as an interim thing?
No, so they gave us some dollars to run the train additional hours before we had any of this stuff in mind. And so this would allow us to realize the execution of those funds, but that's not for, it's not for design work, it's for operating.
Right, that's what I should have been more clear. They gave us some operational dollars.
Yes, sir.
To that. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So going back to the A-Train program update with the 4 different components. On the downtown Carrollton, what is the assumption for what the delivery method is on that?
So we purposely didn't put that on here, because here we haven't, I don't think we made the final decision on that delivery method yet. So we've kind of kept it vague as pre-construction and construction, but for this schedule, it could, I think it more aligns with CMAR right now, but we could flex that however we need.
I think we're assuming it'll be some alternative delivery method. We just haven't.
That it's not design bid build, because that one would obviously go out longer.
Correct.
Okay, and at what point do we make the decision on the delivery method?
So once, what we'd like to do is get us through this preliminary design task, give you the understanding of the risks related to what's in the ground and under the ground and what the costs are going to be. And then you all get to make that decision before we launch the solicitation.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's really under the procurement. That's why that's so big, because that's for us to decide.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And the way that we've, if you go back to that previous slide, Austin, the one with the objectives,
Oh, sorry.
that one. So we had that really good conversation with y'all a couple of months ago about not talking about a 15% design or a 30% design, but what are we trying to achieve? These are the things that we're trying to achieve. And so when we bring this task order to you next month, we're gonna be able to identify, here's our objectives, and then here's what the scope does to address these objectives. It's not gonna give us a full, what you would traditionally call a full 35% design or whatever it might be, but we intend to have it hit those objectives. And give ourselves ultimate flexibility and minimal cost.
So I guess that takes us to recommendations. So again, these are 2 items. We're gonna take them one at a time. And we'll start with the first one. Is there any further discussion on this? If there's not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval of authorization letter for Rio Grande Pacific in an amount not to exceed $2,456,040 for A-Train curve and speed improvements.
You have a motion, have a second. No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to item number 5. Any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion for item number 5.
I'll move to approve task order number 3 with H.W. Lochner in the amount not to exceed $113,467.90 for curb and speed improvements project management support.
Have a motion, and we have a second. Any further discussion? Not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Now moving on to regular item number 6. Discuss updates on Denton County Transport Authority marketing and communication program and advertising revenue policy. Randy Evans. Good morning.
Morning, Vice Chair, members of the board. My name is Randy Evans, Marketing and Communications Manager for DCTA. This item is discussion only, so no board action is required today. This is how we start. This is how everything starts out. This is how we map out our plan. This is an 18-month calendar that we keep. You'll see it's highlighted by community events. This is our community involvement. You'll see photos from the recent Lewis Back to School event for Louisville ISD, as well as the drone shots of the DCTA logo, as well as the A-Train at the recent Red, White, and Louisville. We also have events such as the McAuliffe Chili Cook-Off, where our CEO was the judge for the parade, which they really appreciated. So this is our, this is what we do. It kind of keeps us on track for everything going forward. A-Train campaign, we do. This highlights the A-Train. It increases the awareness, all the cool things that Austin just told us about. It's our job to make sure the community knows about it. You'll see these ads along 35, as well as in our member cities on digital billboards, as well as print and digital ads in Denton Record Chronicle, Cross Timbers Gazette, as well as Community Impact. Going forward, these ads will be designed to, keeping with the We Do concept, they'll be designed to increase ridership on the train, as well as highlight, as I mentioned, the improvements that's coming forward. DCTA is very active on all 4 of our social channels. We are active on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. We've had over 135 videos promoting DCTA services and employees over the last fiscal year, as well as over 600 social media posts across all channels. These are some of our more viewed social posts. The ones that perform well for us are when we're highlighting the events that we're in, as well as the A-Train, as well as the videos that are highlighting employees, as well as DCTA services. And I am happy to mention that over the last fiscal year, we've seen a double-digit increase in all of our followers across all channels. These are the KPIs that we pay close attention to for our social channels. Impressions and engagements, I would say, are the most important. Impressions is simply how many times has that post been presented to people. And then the engagement is how many times those individuals interact with your post, whether it's a like, a share, a comment, or if they DM you with a question or a comment. That goes into the engagement. As you can see in the gray, we've seen some increases since earlier this year in both categories. And then here we highlight clicks and engagement. Click, basically, if there's a link in that post and they click, it goes into this. Whereas engagement rate, you take the impressions and engagements, it's a formula that calculates a percentage. And that's how you get the engagement rate. That if you look in the gray, we're starting to hit our stride with that as well, outperforming some of the previous years. As everyone knows, we're in the process of buying new buses. And with that, there's a redesign of the brand on the wraps. The idea is to mimic the look and feel of the A-Train, the color scheme and the curvature. And once we finalize one of these 2 concepts, which we appreciate any feedback you're willing to give us, this look and feel will be implemented across all DCTA vehicles. If you notice in concept 1, there's the angled design, but it also has the A-Train curvature at the top of the bus by the number there, the 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on concept 2, you'll see the curvature, while it mimics concept 1 quite a bit, the curvature, you see the curvature more throughout the bus as well, both at the top and the bottom. But again, we look forward to any feedback you're willing to give. Ad revenue policy. You have a version, a draft in your packet. This is where we'll be going to RFQ, hopefully by the end of the year. We're looking to have you approve the policy by consent next month, in next month's board meeting. The policy is intentionally broad to provide DCTA with the flexibility going forward to cater that policy to our needs. We will offer some protections for DCTA in terms of prohibiting certain advertisements, false, vulgar, obscene, obviously no advertising for tobacco or alcoholic beverages, things of that nature. And all ads will be approved by DCTA, and it's designed to bring in an additional revenue stream for the agency.
Randy, if I could go ahead. So back to the work plan for this year, and one of those objectives was improving long-range financial plan outcomes. This is one of the ways that we do that, by generating additional revenue that gives us more on the revenue side. So this is how we push on revenue through the fair policy, those sorts of things, while we also work on the OpEx side as well. So like Randy said, the draft of the policy is in your packet. Certainly open to feedback, but we're trying to make it as broad as we can so that we can attract as many types of advertisers as we can, and just make sure that we set up good guardrails to keep things out that we know that we wouldn't want. So thank y'all for considering that.
Upcoming initiatives, we have our A-Train promotions, Go Zone rider stories. We recently shot some video of one of our youngest A-Train fans, if you will, a 4-year-old. He got a tour of the rail yards, and we'll use those videos to showcase where the A-Train can take you. We'll also start to promote, as Austin mentioned, we'll use videos to promote the A-Train enhancements, as well as one of the upcoming ones that I would like to bring your attention to is the civic group engagement. As we are currently members of chambers, and we currently speak at different Rotary groups and things of that nature, we are going to do a broader search for any organizations that we may have missed. And we're going to increase the number of times that we are in front of these, all in the objective for telling the DCTA story to everyone, as well as the A-Train Market Review Initiative. That's a study that we're going to implement next year, next calendar year, or fiscal year, that will tell us who's riding the train, who should be riding the train, what businesses along the corridors that we could partner with, as well as apartment complexes to increase ridership on the train and overall awareness of where the train can take you and why you should be on the train as opposed to 35. So those are some of the things that we'll be looking forward to next year. And at this point, again, discussion item only. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Randy?
Mayor?
Danny?
Yeah. The bus.
Mhm.
And it looks like they're white wing, green, so on, so. It looks like you've got half of the bus still coming. I'm wondering what the traffic will think on an intersection. And they think that the bus has already gone by. Get this white thing, which is the end of the bus. My older eyes start seeing things the way, what can be a hazard. And that actually looks like 2 buses. Me.
2 separate? Okay. Good point. It's one of the things we did in the design to help mitigate that is this gray area here are actually reflective. So you really can't see it on this particular slide, but it will give you more of some substance that is an object.
There's still something coming.
Yes, sir.
But that's good feedback, and that's the kind of stuff that we need to think about, and certainly we'll run this past the manufacturer as well, who can give us some best practices. But maybe that's also a signal that maybe one of those stripes on the side becomes reflective or something like that, so.
Yeah. I have nothing to base this on, just my old eyes.
Yeah.
That's most marketing.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
Yes, another question over here.
So I had a question about the social media engagements.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any way to discern whether or not those engagements are positive or negative, or what the sentiment of those engagements?
Yeah. So one, not necessarily with your impressions, however, we do track what we call the mood of the comments. And we categorize those as red, yellow, or green. Red is a negative comment, yellow is neutral, and green is really what you want. It's kudos, good jobs, things like that. Over the last, I would say since January, when we implemented more of the videos of employees and where DCTA is in the community, we've seen a significant decrease in negative comments and actually starting to get more positive comments. And within the last 4 or 5 months, probably 60 to 70% has either been yellow or green. And you see more yellow comments if it's a router alert, if you're communicating a bus bridge or something like that. But we've actually seen more positive comments once we started highlighting our employees,
Okay,
which
great.
we'll do more of.
So we are monitoring that.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a love-hate relationship with social media.
Oh, for sure.
There's sometimes you get people who really just want to make negative comments,
Mhm.
and sometimes we're always going to get that, but sometimes there might be some stuff in there that is a nice criticism or something that we can, at least
Mhm.
take that information and change something that's maybe not working in the system. So I just wanted to make sure that we were actually monitoring, content of those
Yes.
engagements as well. So it sounds like you got it under control.
Yeah. And just so you know, the comments where they have a sincere question, most times they'll DM us directly, and we do respond to those as well. But we usually try and take them in the direct message route. That way it's not a public conversation, but we do try.
Great presentation. Are you familiar with Net Promoter Score? Promoter Score is?
No, sir.
So Net Promoter Score is it's a agnostic system to measure customer loyalty.
Mhm.
It cuts across industries, and it's become pretty commonly used, where you basically ask people how likely they're to recommend a service or a product to a friend. 8 or 9 and 10 are great. 8, 7 and 8 are neutral. 6 and below are negative. I would just encourage you to consider looking at that. And there's a lot of research on that really helps drive, your marketing, but also how are you being perceived by the public. And so just a thought.
Yeah, it's something we could definitely pull into the market review that we have coming up.
And it's a very easy question. How likely are you to recommend
Yeah.
DCTA to a friend? I do it all the time, but I'm also biased.
I appreciate that. Any more questions?
Any more questions? Otherwise, thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Our next item is to discuss an update on DCTA non-member city contract services portfolio, and this will be done by Paul Christina.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and board, and I want to say thank you to Randy for the great presentation. He and Jackie have done a lot of work to launch this third-party marketing firm that we advertised for and came under contract with in January. Really done a lot of work to get some momentum on the social media front. Like we said, we will, by the way, be bringing the next task order for our external marketing firm to the board next month on the consent agenda that we talked about when you all approved it, but they're a key part of our team and we appreciate the work that they do as well. So wanted to spend some time giving you an update on our non-member city and contracted services portfolio. As you recall, we come back to you every year with a slew of interlocal agreements to update, to renew, and task orders and contracts to renew. And over the last couple of years, we've worked really hard to, number one, get all of those engagements on the annual fiscal year calendar so that they're predictable and we can be prepared for them. We've also worked on the non-members and contracted services policy, or new member and contracted services policy. And then we also advertise for all new mobility services contractors and a new Go Zone contractor. And so all of those things come together into this briefing and what we're going to ask you for next month, which is the continuation of the services under this portfolio. But before we do that, I wanted to give you an update as to how these services are performing and also talk about how we're intending to mold these services into conformity with our new member and contracted services policy. Because what you all said was that there's reasons that we do these services. It's not so that we can just be doing contracted services over the long term, but it's because we're trying to expand the network, enhance the value of the member cities by getting them connected to more places, and also helping the region figure out how to get more public transportation in such a fast-growing area. So this map is showing you the current picture of what our member city and non-member city engagements look like. Nothing new. The most recent service that's come online for us had been the Allen and Fairview service under Collin County Rides. Hard to believe, but that was 2 years ago. That deal was an initial 2-year +1, so we're going to talk about the +1 today. But we'll just step through these one by one and talk about the ridership performance and kind of service profiles overall. I will say one of the things we're doing as an organization is setting up the internal rhythms and conversations to make sure that we're staying on top of ridership performance, on-time performance, those sorts of things, and making sure that we're providing accurate reflection of what's happening on these services, not just when we issue invoices, but also as we look at the health of these services internally. So, and that work is ongoing. On the Frisco paratransit side, just as you recall, we provide 2 wheelchair accessible vehicles running in the city of Frisco Monday through Friday from 6 to 6. We have a Lyft task order available for overflow. When those taxis are full, people can book by Lyft. There's also a small population of folks that are using Lyft as a direct taxi service that may not qualify as ADA paratransit. That's kind of a legacy thing that happened back in 2021 during the COVID pandemic. And we are seeing that service sort of taper off, not advertising for new riders, but those types of rides are happening under that Lyft contract. Top on-demand taxi origin and destination points, you will recognize these as largely life critical, essential sorts of trips: dialysis centers, senior centers, schools, grocery stores, restaurants, those sorts of things. When we look at on the top right, passengers that are using the service, there's 6,587 taxi only trips within the city of Frisco. Almost 8 in 10 start and end within the city limits of Frisco. The ones that don't go to places that are immediately adjacent, like Plano. And then if you look at the bottom right, what you see is all trips, taxi plus the Lyft overflow. In 2025, the light blue line is staying pretty consistent. We're averaging 800 trips a month. So a healthy service. Our active passenger count has grown. These are people that have taken a trip over at some point in the last reporting period, and seen that grown significantly since the pandemic. Largely, we have an ambulatory user base. These are people that are not in wheelchairs. And you might say, but we're running 2 wheelchair accessible vehicles. The reason is because the wheelchair trips tend to cluster. And if we only have one, then we have a lot of people that aren't able to get a ride because we can't put wheelchair folks onto the Lyft service. And so we're synced up with the city of Frisco on that. And then the graph at the lower right shows you how those trips are split month to month between Irving Holdings, our taxi service, and Lyft. We track key performance indicators like on-time performance and passengers per hour. 1.2 is a good standard for a citywide paratransit service that's moving people that require time to get into and out of vehicles. And then on-time performance, we've done well overall. A couple of months that we were slightly below, but on the whole, we receive positive feedback on the service. Don't get many complaints, and we're really grateful to have the opportunity to serve the citizens of Frisco. On the Collin County Ride side, we are providing 3 vans, still Monday through Friday, 6 to 6. 2 of these wheelchair vans, one of them an ambulatory van, and then we also have that Lyft overflow service. We began this service in February of 2024, and as I said before, we offered it as a two-year term plus 1 additional option year if the money is available. September 30th will be the end of that 2-year period. There are funds available for a 3rd year, so we're working with the Council of Governments to reauthorize our agreement with them, and as we work with Allen and Fairview to reauthorize our interlocal agreement for that 1 additional year. Again, origins and destinations inside the city of Allen and the town of Fairview. My possibilities is continuing ed and job placement for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The rest of those are fairly recognizable. Again, senior citizens, life essential sorts of trips. You see the graphs on Allen and Fairview. 23 through 25. The green line on the graph is showing you everything from 2023 through January of 2024. That's when DART was providing the service. There was a dip in ridership when we took it over because DART was providing these trips to people from Allen Fairview all over the Metroplex. So we limited it to Collin County. But however, we still see the services performing well and continues to be relevant for those communities. Key performance indicators there, looking great on-time performance. Passengers per hour performed well also. And then our last service is the Capel First Last Mile Lift on-demand service. This is allowing businesses in the city of Capel to work with the city to get a code that can be used in the Lyft app so that their employees can get a discounted ride from a DART train station or some other location to the work facility inside the city of Capel. The yellow line shows fiscal 2025. The service is kind of ebbed and flowed over time, but maintains its relevancy. And our conversations with the city of Capel, as well as Allen, Fairview, and Frisco, is that they would all wish to see them continue. So let's talk about how we begin implementing our new policy in light of these services that we've been having in place for some time. As we've begun drafting these new interlocal agreements, we're thinking about specifically what is the term of this agreement, this idea of a transit working group, and then is there grant funding being applied to the interlocal agreement? The term is self-explanatory. I'll talk about the transit working group. When we implemented the Collin County Rides interlocal agreement, we put a clause in our interlocal agreement with the city of Allen and the town of Fairview that said, before the end of this engagement, the city or the town will create a working group comprised of the city, DCTA, staff from NCT COG, who will come together to create a plan for what happens to this service at the end of the contract period. This points to the board's direction that we don't intend to do these contracted services forever. And so in Frisco, we've never had that term before, but in the proposed agreement, we do. In Collin County Rides, we've always had it. We initiated the conversation with Allen and Fairview. It's requiring some follow-up, so we intend to do that in this last year. And then in Capel, we've never had that conversation before, but we are expecting to. You might remember from previous briefings that we have already started to talk about this with Frisco a little bit in terms of their desire for a GO Zone service, which would certainly fit the bill there. And then with the city of Capel, we recently met with their mayor and their city manager, and they also indicated some interest in a microtransit opportunity to address some needs that they see in their community. And so we think that that's the way that that conversation can proceed. On the term side in Frisco, you know that we do these things on an annual basis. What we're asking for is to do these now on a 3-year base plus a 2-year option to provide time for that conversation to happen, for a plan to be put forward. And also, or if at the end of this 3-year period, it has not moved, then the board gets to make the decision as to whether or not this is something we want to continue. It also saves a lot of effort to prevent having to rehash these agreements on an annual basis when we know that they are going to continue for at least as long enough to have the conversation about what is the future of transportation in the city. At Collin County Rides, we started with a 2+1, 2-year base, 1-year option. We'll be exercising that 1-year option because, like I said, we've done the math. We see that we have funds available. The city has funds available. The COG has funds available. And then on Capel, we would like to be able to do the 3-year base plus 2-year option so that we can, again, have time for that conversation to develop and then really lead it to a specific decision point. On the grant funding side, Capel remains a city-funded service directly. Collin County Rides has always had grant funding applied to it. On the Frisco service, they now do have some grant funding applied to it. And that came when the conversation about GO Zone started. And so the idea was their local match would help fund the GO Zone service, and then the paratransit service could receive grant funding. While the GO Zone service waits, the grant funding is still available for the paratransit service, and so that's being applied this year. So we just wanted you to, again, we're going to bring these back next month. We'd like to put, it'll be a long list of interlocal agreements and task orders on the consent agenda, but wanted you to have some visibility as to how we're progressing this new member and contracted services discussion while the region is having the conversation about regional transit 2.0 overall. Feels like these sorts of timelines help us to have that conversation regionally, but open to your feedback or any concerns you might have about this approach.
Concerns, questions?
I'm really glad to see the proposal of implementing a working group for these programs. I think that's a really valuable step toward getting more engagement, future engagement, opening up conversations about what the future of those relationships might look like.
I concur. I mean, those things are, the more we talk about it and we can get people to, I mean, all these things cost money. And we can start talking about those are hard decisions because it's a choice you're making. So the sooner we can start talking about it, I think the better. I like the idea of moving to 2-3 years contract with the advanced, with the option years, just to reduce the strain on staff, our staff to do this. I think those are all positive. So the other thoughts?
I was just gonna say, I agree with the timelines that, I would love to see it all happen right now, but these things do take time and I want to see us take time and get it done right. I just see so much opportunity, with everything going on right now. We need to get more, contributing cities into really any transit organization, but, since we are DCTA, we need them here because it not only helps us expand a service, to other members of Denton County, but also it is just a positive for the current member cities and what our residents have access to. Because I mean, I think it's safe to say all of us don't just travel within one zone, everybody travels across the Metroplex to varying degrees. So I think this is something that is a tremendous benefit to the member cities who are currently a part of DCTA, huge opportunity for the future of DCTA. And I'm really thrilled that we're having this conversation.
Thank you.
Paul, does the Collin County rides, I assume that covers McKinney?
So the way that it works is the ride the person has to live in the city of Allen and Fairview. And they can go from those cities to anywhere inside of Collin County, including McKinney.
Okay,
And then they'll get to go back to Allen and Fairview.
because I had the city of McKinney send 20 people to see me on Monday, and we were talking about this because they were very impressed that we had a DCTA bus stop, by the way. So, but they said, well, we have the microtransit. And so is that our microtransit, or is there something else out there for them?
I'm not familiar with what services the city of McKinney has that go beyond, well, I know that they have the McKinney Urban Transit District, but I'd have to get back with you on what that.
Okay, that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Question. So just to give you a bit of a preview as to what's coming on the consent agenda when you see it published. We have interlocal agreement with Allen. We have task orders with Z-Trip and Lyft for Allen and Fairview. We have an interlocal agreement coming for Fairview. We have an agreement coming for NCT COG to get the additional money or the remaining money available. We have an interlocal agreement with the city of Capel. We have a task order with Lyft to cover that service. And then we have the interlocal agreement with the city of Frisco, along with the Z-Trip and Lyft task orders to cover the city of Frisco. So again, next month's agenda is going to have a lot of stuff on it on the consent side. This is what it's all tied to. So just wanted to give you that visibility before you saw it. Okay. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Item 8 is discuss local and regional updates and legislative updates. Paul, do you have anything for us?
I would maybe point to, we got the chance to attend the last meeting of the RTC at the Irving Infrastructure Summit. The RTC directed the creation of a transit subcommittee that's in the process of being formed. DCTA has raised our hand and said we're willing to participate in that committee and provide staff time. And I believe that our chair would also participate, as perhaps would the chairs and CEOs of the other two transit agencies in the region. So we're standing by to see how that works itself out. We also have helped with the infrastructure summit and the CEO, the transit CEO panel. If you recall, we talked about 10 things that we'd like to see happen on Regional Transit 2.0. And that seems to be part of the conversation about the work that the committee may take up. And so we're again, glad to help participate in that.
Yeah, and just to let you know, yeah, they reached out, COG reached out to me as the RTC member for DCTA to serve on that committee, and I agreed to as well, so. Okay, I don't have anything else. Informational reports, safety service ridership reports are available on our packets. Updates in Denton County Board's terms have been sent out. Let's see, next item is future agenda items, board member requests. Do we have any from the board members? And after that, if there's none, then I'll go into items of community interest. Is there anything anybody wants to share from their individual communities?
Denton Blues Fest is coming up September 19th through 21st. This one is not quite as widely attended usually as Arts and Jazz, but I can't recommend it enough. They always have spectacular acts, and it's really a great program they put on.
Denton Blues Fest, okay. What, September?
September 19th through 21st in Quakertown Park.
Okay. Denny, do you have an update?
Community interest, Shawnee Trail Cowboys are coming to Frisco on last Saturday of September. And we'll have gunslingers, armadillo races, mechanical bulls, as well as what we call postcard longhorns that you get your kids on top of and get Christmas carved out of it. Along with pony rides and ropers and up close magicians. Just to have a good afternoon on Saturday.
All right.
Last Saturday of the month.
Last Saturday of September. Thank you.
So I had one, we're about a month out from our Western Days, which is our biggest event of the year. So that is the last weekend of September. It's Friday night and all day Saturday. Always a spectacular event. We just released our headliners for Friday and Saturday night. I'm not a country music fan, so I don't really know, but my husband is very excited about it. So if that's any indication. I also wanted to mention, as a person who also lives in Old Town Louisville, we have a whole lot of construction going on. And parking there's not going to be a ton of parking. So this would be a perfect opportunity to utilize DCTA services to get there and to get home. So, but come out, it's going to be a great time. And
Will it be a dunking booth?
I have not heard anything about a dunking booth this year. They usually ask us. I don't know if they're just telling us to do it this year around, but I've not heard anything about it. So I guess before the next meeting, we'll find out what time, if it happens, we'll find out what time Mayor Gilmore's dunking time is.
Oh, well, let the mayor know that practicing throwing.
Okay.
Okay. Next item, executive session. Joe, do we have anything for executive session?
Mr. Chair, if I could really quick, just point you to, the next board meeting is going to be the fourth Wednesday in September. The fourth Thursday is going to be the Transit Coalition of North Texas Annual Luncheon. They asked us if we would move our board meeting to accommodate their reservations at the hotel. We were glad to do that. And so just note that we'll be meeting on the fourth Wednesday next month. And then if I might just say a couple of community interest items also, sir. Number one, we get we get good feedback from our customers on a periodic basis. And one that we got was particularly touching that Miss Lisa Taylor received. There was a woman who wrote a note to say thank you for her mother, who had been a paratransit customer for a long time, but had passed away. And she took the time to write a letter that just told us, thank you for all the ways that we cared for her mother in that season of her life, and how that ministered to her and her mom. And it was just a really touching note. Lisa says, this is why we do what we do. I totally agree. And so I just think that's worth sharing. Next, one of our very own, Mr. Javier Trilla, has been accepted to the Leadership APTA program. This is the American Public Transit Agency's premier leadership development program for executives across the industry. He'll be one of how many people in the program? 26? Yeah, 30. Anyway, well-deserved. He's done a great job for DCTA, and now he gets to talk about the things that he's done for DCTA at the national level with this group of other transit executives. So we're timing our announcement more broadly with when APTA announces theirs, but we're going to say congratulations to Javier and job well done.
Congratulations, Javier. I know we talked about it before, but.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Okay, that gets us to the end of our regular meeting. And I brought down the date just for the public to know, September 24th. This will be our next regular board meeting at 10 o'clock. And no further items. Didn't ask you if you have anything.
No, sir.
Okay. If not, we'll adjourn the meeting at 11:35 a.m. Thank you.